Welcome back to another episode of Lads Talk About Things they should be doing themselves but don't do enough of.
This is the next in our series of theory training videos, and this applies to basically all of our three categories: our crossfitters, weightlifters and powerlifters. The assumption is that our real athletes are doing enough of this so they don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
But you can listen if you want to find out some of the benefits that you're getting from your field sport or your fucking running or whatever you do that helps your strength training, which you're probably not doing enough of.
Whatever the fuck that is. I think CrossFitters probably have enough of this as well.
Actually, that's very true.
But weightlifters and powerlifters are so guilty of this.
We've a lot of general strength training people too.
Yeah.
As well, to be fair.
So basically what this is we're not talking about like going out doing large bouts of cardio training or even periods of training or like periodized blocks where you're just doing cardio. We're talking about small, like incremental auxiliary sessions where you're addressing your cardiovascular health. We want you to have a certain level of cardiovascular fitness that allows you to basically exist as an athlete well, recover well as an athlete. You're by no means going running 5 and 10Ks.
So it's like the concept of the kind of rising tide lifts all boats. So you want all of your boats to be at a certain level. So that's why strength training works well for real athletes, because it lifts up their other boats that they're not really getting from their very specific sports. And so this works back the other way. So when you're a strength athlete, this kind of gives you some of the benefits that doing real athletes or real sports.
Yeah.
You know, you get some, it's vice versa, it works both ways, okay? So the first benefit, and we'll get into a little bit about what you should do after, so our recommendations for cardio for gym-based athletes. So our first one is intra workout benefits. So at the most kind of micro level of this whole kind of training view, we have better recovery between sets. So a faster return to baseline between sets. So we're at baseline right now. Well, I'm not sure if it's...
I'm homeostatic as fuck.
resting heart rate, so whatever that might be. Hopefully it's around 60 to 70 beats, somewhere like that, unless you're like 140 kilos. So this means that let's say you're doing something like snatches, you're doing something like 6x2. The time to recover after your first double is to bring it back down, okay? So the better your aerobic fitness, the faster this will come back down, okay? So if you have yours to a minimum level, doing 6x2 shouldn't really fatigue you that much, and the time we should take between each consecutive set should be fairly minimal for snatching. So unless you're after a long period of detraining, if you've been training for a significant period of time, it shouldn't take more than a minute to a minute and a half to recover almost fully your cardiovascular system to a certain level, your energy systems, but that's the main one.
I
shouldn't
think
be that heavy fatigued after a double.
No, and on that point, like in weightlifting specifically, because it's so technical, it's not just a physical thing that you're starting to replenish stores or whatever, and you're starting to like return ATP or whatever. You're literally just able to concentrate better when you're not breathing like a 10-year-old Labrador that just ran up a hill. You know, like it's on a very, very simple point. It's just easier to concentrate better on each lift.
So when it returns you back to baseline, so you're ready to go again for the next set, like you'd barely done any previous sets. So if you're in a stage where, like you are saying, you're very fatigued after 1 or 2 sets, it takes 4 to 5 minutes. Realistically, not even in terms of like the energy systems, you're just going to not want to do another set to the best of your ability, rather than concentrating on, geez, in that last set I was pulling a little bit slow after the knee. You're thinking about, fuck, after doing another set, and you're stressed. Your whole body's stressed because you're not in good shape and you're not ready to go for another set. So when you're like that, let's say you're doing 3x10 the back squat, you're starting a powerlifting powerlifting phase and you have a competition coming up, you're going to be starting with higher volume. And if you have very poor cardiovascular fitness, a set of 3x10 is going to be the most daunting mountain for you to climb. If you've ran the Rotate Your Squat program, a lot of people have said that the first 2 weeks have been fairly crippling, and that's obviously exposed a significant weakness in their training, and it's one of the reasons people make big gains at the end of the program, is because that's their training, a modality of their kind of themselves that they've never done before. So that brings on to the next point then, is in between intra exercise. So in your individual session again, when you go from, you do your snatches or you do your squats, when you move on to your kind of clean and jerks or your deadlifts, you are much better recovered. So you don't need to sit down for 20 minutes and think about life. You're just ready to go for your next set. You return after maybe 10 minutes of just kind of setting up for the next exercise, thinking what you have to do. You return back to normal, and you have a greater ability to perform more work in less time, so you can get better quality sessions in, and they're not taking 3 hours. You can condense your session down to 1.5 hours to 2 hours, which is of greater quality, less time, and it's just more effective overall.
Yeah, I think moving on from, so intra workout would be in between your exercises, in between your sets of the workout itself. Inter-workout then is the next one. So in between Monday session and Tuesday session, or Tuesday session and Thursday session. I think this is a real misnomer, and people get really lost in all the kind of talk out there about recovery sessions and active recovery.
I would say CrossFitters are really, really guilty of this one. This is the biggest one that they're doing their active recovery.
So
rowing.
Yeah, it's very important to know that there's no such thing as active recovery. It's just additional energy expenditure. If you wanted to recover as best as possible, you would lie horizontally and you would be in a deep sleep with some sort of drip feeding you glucose and saline, like whatever, like you want to do no activity at all. So don't get mixed up with doing cardio as your active recovery, thinking it makes you better at recovering. It doesn't. So we spoke earlier about like having good prerequisite levels of cardiovascular health. That will allow you to recover faster. So a lot of the stuff with the high intensity training and a lot of stuff around resistance training increases your post-exercise oxygen consumption. So the oxygen that the muscle takes in after exercise, you're basically kind of forcing more, like you need more oxygen in the muscle following exercise. If you have a good healthy system, that's returning oxygen faster to the muscles and allows you to recover better over the course of maybe 12 to 24 hours. Doing a HIIT session on the bike just because you don't vomit afterwards doesn't mean you're going to be good at actively recovering. That's what I would say about that.
So there is kind of there's no, as of yet I haven't seen, and no one's really spoken about a good mechanism of action that would arise from doing cardio. So there's no like metabolic kind of clear pathways that are shown to, when I do cardio, my beats per minute go this high, my blood pressure goes this high, or whatever, that this particular kind of pathway activates, and then it initiates these kind of hormonal pathways that recovers my cellular processes better. Like I haven't seen anyone do that, and to be honest, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of kind of research gone into that yet. And like we have, if someone comes out with a great kind of couple of papers and a few other people replicate it and they have very good reason for it, then we'd be all on board for it. Like we'd be more than happy. But as of yet, there is no good kind of and I haven't seen it, and if someone has seen it, then we'd be more than happy to show.
Definitely, yeah.
But as of yet, it doesn't seem like there's any good evidence that that's a thing. So
I think the last point on the inter-workout, like, the other thing is a cardio session or like a low intensity steady state session is a very good way of breaking up your training week.
Yeah.
If you're a powerlifter or a weightlifter who can only train for powerlifting and for weightlifting, most people only need to train 4 or 5 times a week.
Definitely.
Maximum.
For powerlifting, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, like, so if you're somebody who enjoys going to the gym or they like training or whatever it is, I don't know why you would. Like, it's a good way of going to the gym, of getting that kind of, that good feeling from training without breaking yourself down more and then stalling your progress with your sport.
So that kind of moves on to the next point, which would be health, or health, depending what you say.
Health.
So one of the kind of holistic benefits of doing cardio is you just feel better overall. You feel like a better human being. You don't feel like as much as a piece of shit. So way back in the day when we started fucking strength training and shit, and Elite FDS was the best blog you could find on strength training, we had mega fat powerlifters in their in their fucking whole body knee sleeves, you know. And the cardio was something, they did a little bit of GPP, which was like the prowler. The prowler was huge back in the day, pushing a sled or dragging a sled, you know. And then now we people like Larry Wheels. You see the stuff with the cam girls actually?
No.
I'll tell you after. So there's like stuff like that. There's like we've people like Tom Martin is in phenomenal shape. Now I know these lads are on, look, you know, but they're in great shape, and we've a lot of natural powerlifters in the IPF who are assumed to be natural in very good shape, you know, and with good reason, and they're lifting some crazy weights, you know. And it's just very beneficial to be in good shape. So for all of those reasons above, but when you feel better, you're more motivated to go train. You get better sleep. You get more out of your food. So overall, so it's again that kind of rising tide lifting all boats. You are just slightly better at everything, so it helps. So you're more motivated to go training. If you're recovered better, if you feel like your sessions go really well because each session is better, you build up the momentum we always talk about, and that feeds into the growth process that we always talk about. And then everything is just going better when you've kind of added in this extra domain. And like there, we're emphasizing, you don't have to go crazy with it, but you do have to do a little bit of it. You know? And so
the last thing then is body composition. So just by the nature of strength sports, obviously aside from strongman, but there's a body weight element to almost all strength sports. Training, like body weight or like getting better body composition, is just down to energy balance. It's not down to anything else. If you take the right drugs, it could probably just be a bit easier, but it's just down to energy balance. And the thing is, expending large amounts of energy through resistance training or through high intensity exercise can actually beat you up. So it was like earlier when we spoke about doing a HIIT session on the bike as your cardio versus doing an hour on a stationary bike, just plodding away. Like one of those will really impact your ability to train in the next few days. One of those will barely impact your ability to train at all. So when you're looking at expending additional calories on top of what you're expending already, cardiovascular training is perfect for that. Like slow, steady state, long duration. Like sitting on a stationary bike, I think, is one of the best ones, because you're not, like we spoke earlier about lower body musculature being able to handle this additional volume a small bit easier. Obviously the muscle groups are a lot bigger, so like things like the Aerodyne assault bikes and stuff, they're just bringing in those kind of smaller muscle groups that might necessarily not take too well to the additional loading and the additional volume, whereas something like a stationary bike or going for a walk 3 times a day for 10 minutes is absolutely perfect.
I would suspect as well that low steady state cardio probably has a beneficial impact on your tendons and ligaments and stuff like that. So as usually they've like very poor kind of you don't really feel pain, like you don't have much perception of them. So sometimes you see, like in your wrist, if you ever had a wrist injury, you can improve healing a little bit subjectively by moving it a lot more if you just move your wrist. So I would imagine there's some benefits that way too. But obviously in terms of body composition, fat doesn't contract and it doesn't do anything for you. So you know, people you see kind of ask, does being fatter help me lift more? And it's just kind of a case of the heavier you are, the more likely you are to have more muscle mass. And so that's the reason super heavies lift more, because they have more room to have more muscle mass, and ultimately that's the one doing the work, you know. So if you are, the more muscle mass you have and the less fat mass you have in your weight class, the more likely you are to be better at your sport ultimately, and that's kind of what's come down to it. Yeah. And ultimately, if you bring down calories, you can only go to a certain point before your body either rejects it or you give up on it because it's too much. It's too difficult to be doing a sport. If you're in a sport, you're in a bodyweight category, you don't want to be eating like 1,800,000 or 800 calories a day and try and train. Is,
like, if you're somebody who's in that position now and they want to try and make a change, just start by increasing activity marginally, like an incremental increase in activity. Then look at altering your calories. Obviously, if you eat like a shit, like clean it up first. But don't try and strip yourself down straight away. Like sports performance is the reason we're doing this. Like nobody or most of the people listening to this aren't going to be involved in training in some way. So you don't want to take away from your sport. If you can just add in a small bit extra, that will allow you to be in a slight deficit without kind of sacrificing your ability to recover in other areas.
So kind of some kind of miscellaneous points on that. Women weightlifters seem to benefit more from doing more kind of cardio based activities in their training. It seems to kind of benefit their this is just for weightlifters in particular, they seem to be able to benefit so they can do more volume, that's fairly well established, and more reps at higher intensities
and higher frequencies, and
they seem to benefit. So this is of note for female weightlifters listening. It seems that female weightlifters can keep more of the cardiovascular based activities in their training for longer, and it actually seems to keep things taking over a little bit better. So by incidence, there's just been a lot of female weightlifters and Sika strength evolved over the years, and it just seems like that way. So obviously you're not the week of your comp, you're not doing a load of like hill sprints and stuff, but younger, I think male weightlifters and female weightlifters of any age seem to benefit a little bit more. So that's just kind of a...
And I think on the last point I'd make on that is older male weightlifters, not older, but like any male who's approaching 30 and still training, or like between 30 and 45, we tend to think that like sure, I'm grand, nothing's going to happen here. Like the incidence of heart disease in that cohort in particular is very, very high, and it's very high in athletic population. So keeping that system operating well is very, very important.
So the last point in this video in terms of the information around cardio for strength training would be what's known as the interference effect. Now we're going to have one of our good friends who is Is he being a molecular biochemist now? He is, I suppose. So, but
I don't know what he calls himself.
He's a nerd anyway, right? So he's more of a nerd than I was. And then, so basically, the interference effect in sports science would be it's the presumed hypothesis that cardio training affects strength training, basically.
Yeah.
And there seems to be some good evidence. So this that it does happen. Okay, and obviously, if you think about it long enough, if you do too much endurance training, it's going to fuck up your strength training. Like it's clearly a thing. But I suppose the kind of nuances what people wonder about is like, does a certain amount of cardio negatively affect the gains in strength training? So there was one I saw recently, which was they investigated the damage on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and so they did high intensity interval training, and the people who did the high intensity interval training or who didn't do it responded better to the strength training, were higher responders, you know. So I think one of the issues with this was I think some of them are untrained or kind of less trained, so that does muddy the water a bit for a lot of people who are trained, because introducing a new stimulus and then 2 new stimuluses really fucks things up. So that is worth bearing in mind. But
I think on that point, like just before you move on, like we tend to get into a lot of detail on things like this, right? This is why you're watching 20-minute videos on like I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it matters for almost nobody.
Yeah.
Because
the interference effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't. It's very important that we do the studies and we do them as intellectual exercises and like.
Yeah. Well, I think the assumption is that nobody is doing cardio. Well, listen, that or very few people are doing cardio. So a lot of times people ask, you know, like, so for example, how do I start losing weight? Don't worry about nutrition, but a good place to start, obviously eat clean first, right? But adding a bit of cardio will help you that way, without you feeling like you have to start restricting calories straight away, you know?
I don't know of a single athlete of any weightlifter we've ever met who wouldn't benefit from having a higher level of cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah. So,
and that includes all of the high level weightlifters we've ever trained with.
Absolutely. Actually, see, Gabriel in these training videos is doing a little bit of like CrossFit WODs because he's in for higher reps. So actually that is one of the aspects as well for our weightlifters and powerlifters, is you can just do more work as well. So if you added in your kind of GPP phase at the start of your training, you will give yourself the ability to do more work later on at heavier weights, with a lower chance of getting injured, I would say. Obviously that's very hard to prove, but that's definitely a benefit. So moving on to what we recommend you should do. So like Darren was saying,
go first.
Go for it, Darren. I
think the first thing you should do before you look at any machines or anything like that is 2 things. You can do the 10-minute walks.
Yeah.
I'm going to say go on to the Seeker Strength website and download the free home training programs.
Oh, yeah.
Either number 1 or number 2. They both have aerobic training sessions in them. They have some like strength and bodyweight stuff as well, and some power stuff.
Yeah.
But if you just look at the aerobic sessions, these are like nice little snippets. They take 15 to 20 minutes to do. It's free. It has been done by thousands of times now.
Yeah.
Just do that. That's like simple. Go online, download it. That's it.
So you can do your generic ones, like, you know, you can think I go on the rower, I can hop on the bike. I'm kind of a fan of moving your body through space in some ways. I just like a bit of walking.
You're such a hippie.
I do like it though. I think there's benefits to that. So rather than sitting on the bike, or particularly the rower, I feel the rower is kind of very cramped. I like going for a walk and stuff like that. But the problem with those is walking is a little bit more kind of draining as such compared to the others. And you can kind of, the benefits of rowing and the bike and stuff is you get like visible metrics back, so it's very easy to be to measure the variables, so you can know how many strokes per minute you're doing or how many revolutions per second or whatever you're doing, you know. So where do you start? The lowest amount possible, as you would with anything. So the minimum. You're not in a rush anywhere with this. You're just trying to slowly kind of lift your base of cardiovascular fitness to Dara's nipple height, I think, again, and then that's where you leave it. So you're like, you start with twice a week.
I'm gonna say so obviously it's kind of fucked up at the moment, but if you're somebody who drives somewhere each day, so if you drive to work each day or drive to the train station each day, just start off by parking in the furthest parking space away in the car park. Do very, very simple things like that. If you go shopping twice a week, park in the next car park down from where you usually go shopping. Titrate in tiny amounts and then just make it into a habit. Just continually do it. That's what I do. Just start with those.
So like frequent and low impact is your best friend for cardio, for strength training.
Little and often.
That's
like Garf.
Little and often is the key one to do there. So whatever you enjoy is the most important one. Whatever one you'll keep doing, whatever doesn't hurt your knees or your back, and whatever you will fit into your lifestyle most efficiently, and whatever you will just keep doing for as long as you can. And then you really the good way of gauging this is you shouldn't feel like you've just done a lot of cardio. Now maybe if you're at the start of a peaking phase or something, or a training phase, sorry, not peaking phase, or you kind of are chasing that feeling a little bit. If you're like, I want to feel like I've done a bit of cardio today.
Definitely. And like, if you're in a prep phase,
yeah,
hit it a bit harder than you'll ever hit, you know. But like, sport is number one. Then you have like family and country or something. But sport is number one. Don't sacrifice your sporting performance for any of this, including health. That's what I'd say.
Yep. So just little and often. You know what you need to do too. It's like diet. You know how to not eat like an asshole. You don't need us to tell you or anyone else to tell you. Like, you know what it is. So same with the cardio. Just keep it low. The only kind of nuance aspect is if you're like a powerlifter or some younger weightlifters. If you are at the start of a very bottom of the triangle, you can kind of hit it hard with like hill sprints, pushing or dragging a sled, stuff like that. Bike sprints, stuff like that are really good, and I do think they're very beneficial for training. But once that kind of phase is gone, little and often, low impact, and you won't regret it, and you'll see the benefits within a couple of weeks really.
You'll be jacked.
Yeah, well, SARMs, like #SARMs. Okay, thanks for watching. Who knows where the next one will go?
We won't say the name of the next video,
right.
because we screwed ourselves with this one.
Stop saying that. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.